Hi there, welcome to another edition of Ridgway History. Today, the Aztec Empire. Let's talk about that. The Aztec Empire. You might have heard something about the Aztec Empire before, but today we're going to hopefully put that in a little bit of context. We're going to be talking about their development, their achievements, and really what made them them. As always, there will be a couple of essential questions that will guide us. Does geography determine all of human behavior and civilization? We're going to see some really interesting ways the Aztecs interacted with their environment, and some pretty cool engineering feats as well. And then second, we've been comparing the Inca, the Maya, and the Aztecs to each other. That'll be our goal. And so our second question is, what traits do civilizations share in common with each other? Not what traits two civilizations. What was I doing? How did the Aztecs begin? Well, the height of Aztec civilization was approximately 1200 CE to 1520 CE. Okay? When they meet their very unfortunate demise by the Spanish. We'll come back to that later. Anyhow, the Aztec Empire was a single unified empire whose capital was Tenochtitlan. The Aztec Empire was big, broad, and very, very powerful. And it was created through a series of alliances as well as kind of imperial-like conquerings of other basically surrounding groups. The Aztec Empire, like the Persians or the Romans that we've looked at before, demanded tribute from the people that they conquered. They were known as being incredibly aggressive and warlike. And that tribute, both in human beings and money, we will come back to later. Let's talk about Tenochtitlan. Speaking about how the Aztec Empire developed and how they interacted with geography, okay, the Aztecs, because they were very, very bright, decided to build their capital city in the middle of a lake. They actually had a specific reason for doing this. The Aztecs said that they would found their city where an eagle landed on top of a cactus with a snake in its mouth. Now, even though we may judge them for being kind of an interesting decision on how to pick where to found your city, this was in the middle of what is called, or what was called, Lake Texcoco. So when they made Tenochtitlan in the middle of a lake, they had to have a couple of interesting interactions with their environment to make this work. One was the development of chinampas, which were actually floating crop gardens, which you can see down here. Okay, so what would happen is they would take basically reeds or logs, if you want to think of it that way, and they would drive them down into the dirt, and then they would create basically floating gardens where they could grow their crops. They would also grow crops in the land around Tenochtitlan as well, but if you got to feed, 200,000 inhabitants of your city, you got to have some pretty specific ways to address challenges for growing agriculture. As you can see from the map here, Tenochtitlan, this was made after the Spanish arrived, spoiler alert, but you can see the links of canals and causeways that link Tenochtitlan. If you want to think about Tenochtitlan kind of like being the ancient Venice of the world, you kind of got the right picture in your head. More about Aztec life. Aztec life was dominated, like many civilizations, by social classes. Most people were peasant farmers. Okay, and this is simply because if you want to have a civilization survive, you have to have most of your efforts concentrated on growing food. In terms of elite classes, there was an emperor, a council of nobles, priests and priestesses, which we will come back to later. They hold a very, very important role, and as well warriors. And for Aztecs, war was very, very important. Military warriors could become basically part of noble classes by victory in wartime. We'll also come back to the Aztec slaves here in a bit as well. Okay, so let's talk about Aztec religion. If you've heard something about the Aztecs before, you probably know something about their religious beliefs, and probably human sacrifice, which the Aztecs did do, and they did it very, very well. But you have to understand human sacrifice in the context of how the Aztecs saw it. The Aztecs believed that if they did not sacrifice for their gods, that the gods who sacrificed for them would not be there for them. Kind of think of like if it is, if they don't scratch, their back, the gods wouldn't scratch their back. For example, one of their gods, named Nanahuatzin, the Aztecs believed that he had sacrificed himself to become the sun, and if they did not perform the adequate amount or the appropriate amount of what they saw as human sacrifice, then the sun would not come up. This demanded a lot of people to be able to sacrifice, and So if you remember before, we talked about the Aztecs being very, very military-like based. There's a reason for that. It's because you had to have a lot of human beings to be able to sacrifice. And so all these people come from the constant war that the Aztec society really carried on in order to make these human sacrifices possible. And you can see here that priests hold a lot of power because they have to be able to perform those rituals to please their gods and prevent disasters like the sun not coming up from happening. Let's speak a little bit more about Aztec achievements. Now the Aztecs, I'll move this over here so you can see this. Alright, there we go. The Aztecs had a particular, notably awesome achievements. Number one is definitely their abilities for building cities. The Aztecs developed two calendars, a 260-day one for rituals and a 365-day one for crops. So, like the Mayans, they also had a 365-day calendar. Pretty cool. The Aztecs had a number system based on 20, because 0 wasn't good enough for them. And they also developed mathematical knowledge in multiplication, division, and geometry. They also wrote, the Aztecs wrote in kind of like a pictographic-like language. We actually do have a few books that are left from Aztec times that were not totally destroyed by the Spanish. But let me show you a quick flyby here of Tenochtitlan and what it looked like today. I'm just going to cover that up. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to mute this, that way I don't have any copyright problems. Alright, so this is a video of what modern historians think that Tenochtitlan looked like at one time. So you'll notice the big, broad causeways that are kind of going through the society. You'll see here the Temple of the Sun, which is where those human sacrifices would occur. As we zoom around Tenochtitlan, you can definitely tell that like building cities was something that they were very, very good at. And architecture was kind of their thing. Now, I do want to show you here at the very end, I'm going to kind of skip ahead here in the clip. Let's see here, there's a part where it zooms out. Yeah, so you can see right out here, it kind of flew by fast, but you can see, yeah, here we go, this is the big broad view I'm looking for, is you can see those causeways and those canals that are kind of out here, and the Chinampas, which they grew food on, those floating islands, are kind of out in the middle of Lake Texcoco. Okay, just remember that, you know, they built this in the middle of a lake, and it's pretty darn hard to do. Okay, why was there a bird? What was that? Yeah, why is a bird in there? Why bird? That being said, keep an eye on the on those canals and causeways. Just think Venice. Okay, Venice in your mind. Kind of as your exit ticket for this lecture, I'm going to have you do a 5-minute evaluation, okay? Could you say that the Aztecs are a civilization? So they do they, if you were a doctor, meet the criteria of having CPR swag? And if you haven't heard of CPR swag before, it's the criteria that my classes use to diagnose the traits of civilizations. And they are: C stands for social classes, P stands for public works, R is religion, S, do they have specialization of labor? Do they have people doing different jobs? W is writing, A is arts, and G, do they have some form of a government? Okay, so in the comments below, right down here, leave me a comment and, well, tell me, were the Aztecs a civilization?